Welcome to Garden Like a Guru Show, and I'm your host, Tyhson Banighen, a permaculture instructor, and with me is the one and only wonderful garden guru herself, Sarah Bradshaw, and we're returning today to talk about medicinal herbs, and which is a crossover from the previous conversation, which was herbs using in the culinary enhancement of food. So I'm really looking forward to this show because there's so many. We live in an area of so much abundance when it comes to herbs. It would be really great to really understand how we can use them medicinally. So it's going to be a great show, but I know we need to start off with what's up planetary-wise and garden-wise, energetically, with all the stars in the sky and the moon as to what are the best days for planting and growing and doing all the things in the garden. So welcome.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've got very, very, very smoky skies here.
Yeah.
And seasonally high temperatures, which means that this week is not going to be a good week to do any planting. If you have to do any kind of emergency, get it in the ground, try and do that either Tuesday or Wednesday. Right now we're in Leo. Leo's a fire sign. We got fire in the sky. We got smoke in the sky. We got, hot temperatures. Really not at all auspicious for planting. Tomorrow, 1:30 in the morning, so middle of the night, it's going to slide into Virgo. That'll give us a couple of days, like it'll give us all day Tuesday and all day Wednesday. It's going to go void, of course, just a little tiny bit before midnight on Wednesday night. And so when we wake up Thursday morning, Virgo will be gone. And at 7:30 in the morning, we'll be sliding into Libra, which is not a good planting sign either. So if you got anything to get in the ground that you're desperate to do to transplant, try and hit that Tuesday, Wednesday window. It's going to be challenging enough with the temperatures that we've got, with the smoke in the air. Like, the plants are going to be struggling. You're going to have to water like crazy anyway. Maximize your energy and try and keep it to those 2 weeks.
Yeah, it seems like we're just trying to keep everything alive at this point.
Yeah, indeed. And that in and of itself is enough work. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So we're in Libra, which is a really good time for planning and organizing and kind of thinking things through and getting a lot of the kind of head work, organizational work. That's going to be from early Thursday morning all the way through to early Saturday morning. So, try and keep that in mind. Take advantage of that little window. Saturday, early in the morning, 3 o'clock or so, we hit that end of that first quarter. So when we come awake on Sunday, we're in the second quarter. Now we'll be in Scorpio, so it might be a better window to plant in than the one we're talking about this Tuesday, Wednesday. Sunday morning, Sunday, maybe into Monday a bit. Those might end up being, early Monday morning, all day Sunday. It's a short little window. Might coincide with some rain. We are supposed to get a little bit of a respite. I for one would.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, it would be.
If there's any thunder and lightning forecasted, it certainly feels like the thunder and lightning type of time.
Oh, the one storm we had, I can't remember if it was Wednesday night or Thursday night. Wow, what a show. Now, where I was, we also got a lot of rain, but it woke me up. There was a couple of claps that sounded pretty close. But yeah, it's a scary time.
Yeah.
And while we're on that, I want to kind of alert people for other few things. I'll put up a bit more information on my personal page and on my on the Wise Woman seed page. But the fire in Lytton last week, it has just come to my attention that it took something, it took many things very, very precious, many things. But one of the things that it took was the farm that housed the Saving Seed Project.
Oh, no. Oh,
now, the Saving Seed Project has been headed up by Mojave Kaplan
Mojave's
for quite a
an
while.
old friend of mine, so I didn't know that's where it was. Okay.
Yeah, Mojave lost all of her possessions.
Oh, my goodness.
And the entire seed stock of the Saving Seeds Project is my understanding at this point. Now, Mojave was a founding member of our Shuswap Seed Saver group and our Shuswap Seed Swap and Sale. She was a very dear friend to June Griswold, who was also one of our founding members. You've known her for decades. I've known her for a long while. She's a precious person. She's been generous to a fault with her seeds, with her knowledge, with her expertise. She has brought seed cleaning equipment and has done demonstration days. She's been to the Salmon Arm Fall Fair and has cleaned seed for people there as a demonstration and as a service. There's been a GoFundMe established, and I'll have information and links to that on my personal Facebook page, as well as the Wise Woman Seeds page, and I'll try and get it up on our website. I kind of suck at that stuff, but
well, maybe you could fire it over to us. We'll put it in the show notes as well, right? So
yeah, I think that would be awesome. It's a sad loss. There were hundreds of varieties. Many of the seeds in my collection, I got startup seeds from Mojave. Many in the Shuswap Seed Swap collection in our seed library were originally sourced from Mojave. So, you know, if as the season progresses and things come on, think of saving a bit more. Think of, you know, seeing what we could do to help rebuild this. You know, I have no idea at this point whether they're going to be able to stay at their location, whether they're going to be completely homeless. It's really hard to know. I got this news about 10 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
So I've been kind of scrambling to get a little bit more information about it. And I have not personally been in touch with Mojave. Understandably, she's in significant chaos, but if people can go to the GoFundMe, I'm sure they'll get a very accurate update of what exactly is going on. But,
so Sarah, could you just take a moment, seeing as this is really important and it's her life's work, it's your life's work, and talk about open pollinated seeds and all of what you've been doing and she's been doing and why it's so important for the planet.
Okay, well, and first of all, I really want to tip my hat to Mojave because she has been so dedicated to this work and she has trained so many people, even in our region, on things like how many of something to grow out to get good seed purity. You know, there have been people who are like, oh my goodness, Mojave needs me to grow out like 250 of one type of carrot. Yeah. It seems like overkill. And I'm like, trust me, it's not. So the green revolution that hit post World War II, you know, where North America was going to become the breadbasket to the world, and you know, we were going to solve like all the world hunger problems by growing miracle crops here in North America. led to a very, very, very skewed and lopsided supply of food. And because crops were being grown to be profitable, even if there was up to a 30% wastage factor, things were chosen for the rapidity with which they would grow, for the uniformity, so that they were easy to get through the processing plants and into packing boxes, and so uniformity, consistency of color. So I remember when cherries were every color in the rainbow, and all of a sudden in the 70s, if it wasn't a black cherry, you weren't going to eat it.
Right. Yeah.
No. It's a weird red color. Like I like the black cherries, and the tomatoes went from every color in the rainbow to red.
Yeah, and all the potatoes went to russets or six types of
netted gems, so food was developed for its, how long will it last on the shelf? How well does it stand up to shipping? How consistent is the color? How consistent is the size? How consistent is the harvest window? These were all things so that it could be done by machine, so that it could be, packaged and distributed with, losing up to 30% would not harm your profit margin. Now, a lot of those plants that were developed for this were hybrids, and with a hybrid seed, there are many plants crossed into the development of a hybrid seed. And so a hybrid seed will only come from a plant breeder, a plant breeding company. You don't really produce them in your own backyard. And one thing that this does is it ties the producer or the gardener to purchasing seeds every single year. Now, you go back 150 years and people sold or harvested and grew their own seeds. So say the Kentucky Wonder green bean was a favorite green bean here in BC. So, there might be the Banighen Kentucky Wonder that was grown on the Banighen property by the Banighen family for the last 30 years, and it differed a little tiny bit from the ones grown by the Fleury family in Cherryville for the last 30 years. Now, they both start out as Kentucky Wonder. Both of them will regionalize a little bit according to where they're grown, and they'll be an ideal match for, where they were developed. And, local farmers developed a reputation that, you wanted Roger DeMille's corn. Grandpa's choice corn.
Absolutely.
Was, you want that. Roger grew good corn, and this was where he grew it from. And so, people saved their own seed. The farmers took pride in developing things that did extremely well on their property. So as we kind of started catering, and the seed companies started catering to, these wholesale perfect vegetables, the universal answer, all sorts of small varieties disappeared. And when you mentioned potatoes, well, there are over 1,000 types of potatoes. Ireland grew 4.
Wow.
When the potato famine hit Ireland, 3 of them, boom, 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 died in a field blight. The remaining one rotted in the root cellars.
Yeah, that's how tragedies happen.
Yeah. And so because they had been monocropping, because they had, invested in this monoculture of grow this, it does really well, we get the maximum amount, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It was one of our first really well documented famines. We knew how it happened, we knew why it happened. And of course, there were more factors than just 4 types of potatoes. There were many more factors, but it was a large factor. And so, you know, if you fast forward to the 1950s, right after World War II, we are rocking. We are just booming. The Green Revolution is on. Combines are clearing the prairies and packing away the grain. And we are forgetting that the Dust Bowl 30s ever happened. We are right back to, you know, rocking huge fields with rocking huge crops. And bam, we get a wheat rust in Canada that wipes out the wheat crop. The video footage of the men coming in from the fields, I don't know if you've ever seen Aussie gold hunters where they're crushing dirt in Australia to get gold out of it, and everybody's covered in red dust. Well, that's what these poor farmers look like coming in from the fields. And the Canadian government at that time had experimental farms, and they sent scientists and biologists and agronomists over to Ethiopia, where they just happened to grow the most number of wheat and wheat-related grains in the entire world. And it was through careful selection out of that particular thing in the mid-50s that we got a lot of the wheats that we currently grow in Canada, and we have hybridized and bred them and you know, carried on from there. But we're not for seed savers in Ethiopia. We're not for large seed banks in Ethiopia. The Canadian wheat industry might not have ever recovered because it was dire. So we dedicate ourselves to open pollinated seeds, which means these seeds, if you keep them pure, okay, you got to do your part too. You know, if you're growing a bean out for its seed, you can't grow it in with a bunch of other beans. You have to grow it over here by itself, let those beans develop, let them get pollinated. Same with squash. If you're going to grow out a squash plant, you can only grow one maxima or one pepo or one mixta. So, you know, you can only grow out a limited number of things if you're going to save seed, but it is absolutely imperative that we do this. And in the last half of the 20th century, we started to see crop collapses happening, okay? We know bananas are in danger. You know, we know avocados are teetering right on the edge. You know, when 90% of one fruit is a specific variety, it doesn't take much to knock it out of the water. And avocados are in that category. They're teetering right on the brink. One little disaster, and we can have a hard time ever getting avocados back. You know, so since the mid-70s, the push has been on in the agricultural world to get back to open pollinated seeds, to get back to growing and saving your own seeds. And it's quite an endeavor because it requires home gardeners, people who are willing to grow seeds out for a couple of generations and get something kind of acclimatized, so when a market gardener starts growing that variety, they get a good yield right away. There's so much sort of forward work to getting a seed well established in a region. And, you know, Mojave and I are in our mid-60s. You know, we're young enough that we're still actively involved, but we're also old enough to know that this is dreadfully important work that must be handed on to people younger than us, that this has to be kept alive. And, you know, I have seen Mojave I think she's probably spent at least the last 30 years on the property that she's on. I certainly know she was there in 95 when I moved back to BC. So she's been there for a very, very long time. And she had a seed collection of well-established species and varieties. She had things that she had to grow out in rotation to keep, and it was a huge, huge endeavor. Lots of outreach programs to schools, lots of outreach programs to community gardens. I mean, this woman has given her life to this endeavor of saving seeds and saving our food and medicinal seeds. And I just can't state heavily enough that if you don't back anything else, if you can't donate anything else around this forest fire catastrophe situation, at least go to the GoFundMe that's set up and see if you can share it around and help us get this. You know, the UNESCO put up a millions and millions and millions of dollars to build the World Seed Vault at Svalbard in Norway. And it was touted as, you know, the wave of the future, this huge underground vault held at a constant temperature, would keep seeds in stasis for decades if need be. It was so the brand new age technological answer to all of it. And
it got flooded, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a melt in the Arctic that actually flooded the outer chamber. Then it refroze. Then it was inaccessible. Now, fortunately, there was no real damage in the long run, but it really hammered home to us that had, you know, really been on board with this whole project that the best way to save seeds is to grow them out.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got those precious little seeds from somebody, a family member, somebody that gave them to you, a memorial service that you went to and got them given to you, if you've got precious, precious seeds, put them in the ground.
Yes, it's so important.
Hold them up and then save the next generation of the seeds, please. And thank you so much, Tyson, for letting me ramble and really wave my flag off of that platform. It's dreadfully important, and I just really, really hope that people come to some understanding of the crucial nature of seed saving and seed sovereignty.
I'd like to just add to this, if I can, a little bit about ecoforestry from my perspective. I had the fortune of going to Sri Lanka and working with analog forestry, which in Sri Lanka, because of the devastation of the forest lands into agricultural lands, which by the way, shouldn't, it's jungle, so it's slash and burn. And once you slash and burn it, it's only productive for 3 or 4 years, and then you go slash and burn some more jungle. Analog forestry is taking the original components of the forest and reconstructing the original from component parts that serve the same function in the original forest. And what we found in growing the seeds out in the seed nurseries was that the original material, we'd have to go back to the temples, and because the temple grounds were sacred, and the original seeds of all the species would be in the temple grounds. So again, when we think about old gold forests and preserving things in British Columbia, this is why it's so important that we have these areas set aside as seed banks of all the original species for our particular bioregion, and why it's so important. Just one more thing that we did is that's where I learned how to graft. And the other thing was that when we patented the seed, we gave, you know, when we collected the seeds and patented them, we made them open patent so that anybody, once you open patent something, it's not somebody, but something, it's open to anybody on the planet. And it means nobody can come along and repatent it by taking a chromosome out of it and making it their own. So I need to do more research on that, but there is a way in which doing open patenting where you are making it available for all of society, all of planet Earth, for everybody on the planet. So anyway.
Yeah, Creative Commons, which kind of first addressed this in terms of print and internet access, is a good source for learning about that kind of open patenting, because with open patenting, you get credit, but you don't get pay, you don't get royalty, but you get credit, and it gets shared. And I didn't want to kind of flog the horse too much, but you touched on it, and it's really important, and that is food sovereignty and food security. They go hand in hand. There's something skewed when humans are the only animals on the planet that pay for food. There's something really wrong that the only food that is available is what we can actually buy. And the people who inhabited this continent before Europeans, Asians, or whoever stumbled upon it next, because they didn't discover it. There were people here. It was inhabited. And the people who inhabited this continent ate incredibly well long before people came along with stores and railroads and roadways and steamboats. Food lives where we live. It grows where we live. And if we lose, oh goddess, help us if we lose the ability to feed and medicate ourselves. If we cannot feed and maintain our health, we're hooped. We're owned.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this show and you want to know more about this and like us to do a whole show on food sovereignty, food security, which I will probably do anyway, send us your comments and your requests. This is really vitally important. And I would say, Sarah, and I think you would agree, this is one of the fundamental reasons why we started this whole show. And behind it all is we want people to take back their food production into their local hands, right? We want you to be aware of not only what it is to grow your own food, but where can you source really good food in your bioregion, because that food is what you need to have nutritious food in your tummy, not something that you buy from the grocery store, which is from somewhere in Mexico. That's for Mexicans. It's not for Canadians, right?
Yeah, and the most extreme of it is you could not survive in Yellowknife eating only pineapple and papaya. It just you wouldn't make it. And people need to be able to feed themselves. If you cannot put food in your own stomach and on the table for your children, you are at the mercy of the people who are producing the food. And we have seen this. It is absolutely nuts what goes on out there in the food world. And I mean, we ship BC apples to New Brunswick so that New Brunswick can send their apples to England.
It's crazy.
It's insane, and we try to eat in the middle of winter the same way that we eat at the height of summer. Well, I'm telling you right now, I got 4 kinds of salad in my fridge, I don't want to be cooking. But in the winter time, I really want that big cauldron of baked beans and steamed brown bread that warmed my kitchen up all day long.
Right.
But and the other aspect of that is the medicine. We have been robbed of knowledge around what grows and what we can use medicinally. And the last 2 shows, we've been talking about wonderful teas that you can make from your herbs, and, you know, wonderful herbs that you can use in cooking. But the reality is many of these herbs actually have really important medicinal uses. And, you know, so, you know, now I think that growing your own medicines should include your right to grow and use cannabis, your right to grow and use opium poppies, your right to grow and use ethnobotanical plants that are of importance to you, both medicinally and spiritually. I sincerely believe that this is a right that you must be able to exercise. Otherwise, you are being controlled. And anytime I have this discussion with people, I point out that a great number of churches serve wine without a liquor license.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah. So we never challenge that. It's sacrament wine. Like,
right.
You wouldn't get away with that at a restaurant. It's just a little bit of a sacrament. No. You know, you serve wine, you need a liquor license unless you're a church. Right. And, you know, many religions exist on the earth, and many of them use plants. Right. And I think it's important that we, you know, that we maintain that. And in our course, in the garden, in the actual garden circle, in your inner garden circle, I will be going into methodology. I will be teaching people how to be making those heavy-duty medicinals. There could be a time when your life and your family's health depends on it. So, yeah, I will be teaching it. Yeah, but we're going to just kind of really scratch the surface here a little bit.
Yeah, and this is important. I mean, these are not only sacraments that are, you know, are ceremonial purposes, but in some cases they have to, they're really important for dealing with deep levels of trauma that otherwise cannot be released. So I mean, there's so much to this topic that never gets talked about, which is so important for our, literally for our own sovereignty and our own liberation as spiritual beings on this planet. And we need to touch on that, whether it's, you know, whether it's ayahuasca, peyote, or whatever. These are conscious raising, liberating experiences at the right time, in the right place, and the right guides need to be available for those that are ready to use them.
Yeah, I really love attending the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference in the fall every year down at UBC. It is amazing, with people from all over the world and all walks of life, and all of them very much dedicated to the proper use of plant medicines. So let's take a quick look at the garden in the last half hour that we've got here. So we're going to start out with catnip. Okay, we all know catnip, and it's a member of the mint family, grows like a weed in most people's garden. If you don't want it, it keeps coming back anyway. Very, very easy to get going and very easy to keep going. Now, if you snip those lovely little blossoms and dry them, they are incredibly relaxing, and putting them in a sleep pillow, putting them in a tea formula for relaxation, these are, you know, very, very good uses for catnip. But catnip can be a real lifesaver if you have children under the age of 4, because catnip can lower a fever by causing your child to break into a sweat.
Wow.
And this can be really, really life-saving if you are out of, you know, range of medicines, you are out of range of medical help. Knowing how to break a fever, how to get somebody to break into a sweat and get that body cooling is really, really crucial. And that can be achieved with a very, very weak catnip tea taken as a 2-ounce enema. And it really is amazingly effective. Okay, just like yeah, amazingly effective. So, catnip looks simple. It's got, some really basic medicinal uses. Very soothing to the throat. Catnip tea properly strained and clear makes a fabulous eye wash. Very, very soothing to infected eyes. If you get grit or grime in your eyes, flushing them out with catnip tea actually will get out more of the gunk than just water. It seems to have a kind of adhesive effect with the water. My theory is that's because the surface tension of the water is different with the catnip tea than.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've increased the surface tension of the water with catnip, and that will pull out much more stuff. So, all right, and mint. Now, Tyson, we ascertained that your lovely garden has 3 varieties of mint.
Mint everywhere.
Peppermint, spearmint, and you have chocolate mint. Now, chocolate mint is a peppermint, a peppermint mint with a twist. It's not really a peppermint twist, but it kind of is. It was derived out of the spearmint, so it has the same growth format and the same glossy leaves. And it also, despite the fact that it has that lovely little chocolate note in it, that doesn't at all get in the way that the fact that all peppermints have a real extreme mint note in them that is without a doubt the best for breaking down mucus. Okay, so all mint will help to a certain degree, but the range of peppermint helps the absolute most. It is really the best way to go about doing that. Peppermint, very good for make a really strong tea. Now, anytime you're making a medicinal tea, bring the water to a full boil, allow it to sit for about 30 seconds, so it's just that half degree or so under the boiling point. And then when you pour it onto your herbal matter, please let it steep for a minimum of 5 minutes, but no more than 10.
All right.
You need that length of time to pull out the right amount of stuff and make sure that you've got a good absorption. You don't want to go over that. You can end up getting some pretty unpleasant, strong taste, which is an indication that you've kind of overdone it. And if you've ever drank really, really strong tea, you know that overdone tannic acid, for instance, is very unpleasant.
So it seems to me that when I think about what you just said, that probably a tea strainer is a little bit better than a tea ball for doing that.
Yeah, I wrestle with the tea ball because it makes it easy. It contains it all, but every time I empty a tea ball and I see how packed the vegetation material looks inside it. And I just kind of compare it to what happens when I pour that boiling water over a pile of, either tea leaves or dried herbal vegetative matter. It's just, part of me likes that they tumble all around in there in the hot water. And also I know that when I let them steep long enough, most of them settle to the bottom. And, being a real traditional tea drinker, I have no problem ritualizing any and all aspects of tea.
Well, you can read the tea on the way out, right?
Yeah, I can do that too. I do indeed read tea leaves. Yeah. It always amuses me when people tell me that they don't want their tarot cards read because the tarot card is like the devil's instrument. But could I read tea leaves? Yeah. So if you've got if you've got a cough formula, a formula for helping you deal with colds or respiration of any kind, peppermint is a really, really good go-to. It is the most potent of the mints. Now, that doesn't mean your spearmint has no value. It has lots of value. Spearmint actually is much better to add to anything like a horehound candy or a cough drop or a strong syrup that you're going to make. It doesn't go bitter as rapidly. It's a much softer plant and it doesn't have as high oxalates. Spearmint is way preferable for children over peppermint, way preferable. It's just gentler. It enters in at a slightly lower concentration. And if you're in a situation where you need to make a poultice for like a bee sting or a sliver or a splinter of some kind, spearmint is way preferable to peppermint. Peppermint can actually cause a fair amount of discomfort and irritation on the skin. And I've never really known spearmint to do that.
Well, okay. Well, how about those 3 as a cold tea drink in summer?
Oh, I have a fabulous formula. It is 1 part peppermint, 1 part thyme, 1 part chamomile, and 2 parts comfrey. And if you mix that up and you use about a rounded tablespoon in 4 cups of water, it is fabulous. And you can cut that dosage in half, and it is fine for any child over the age of 6 months.
All right. So one more time. That was a lot of information. Quick.
1 part mint. 1 part thyme.
Okay.
1 part chamomile. 2 parts comfrey.
Okay. And 1 teaspoon, is it?
1 rounded tablespoon.
Oh, tablespoon, yes.
In 4 cups is adult dosage.
Right.
Half that for children.
All right, got it.
Yeah, and I have used that formula for over 40 years now.
Wow. So you must like it.
That was a formula that I learned taking a evening herb course from Wild Rose Herb College when the classes were being held in the basement of the old YWCA common room in downtown Calgary.
Yes. Yes.
Way back.
Way back.
Way back. But it's an excellent formula, and I have seen it take kids from that bright green pea soup snot level right to their nose running clear and then breathing fine in a day.
Wow.
It is really, really effective. The thyme makes a wonderful cough suppressant. Sometimes when you're coughing, it's because your cough signal gets stuck.
Yeah.
And so if you've got like a non-productive cough, it's you're not really doing anything with it.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of cough cycle that thyme can break into, because it's a really powerful cough suppressant. And that's one of the things you'll notice in herbs is an immense amount of crossover between culinary and medicinal. And a lot of the medicinal herbs fly under the radar because they're culinary as well. And thyme is one of them. They're, really good cough suppressant. Also pretty good at reducing mucus. So, it's got kind of a double whammy going for it. Now, another member of the mint family that you have that a lot of people grow, it can be really quite invasive once it gets going, is lemon balm, also known as Melissa. Now, lemon balm makes a fabulous tea. It is so tasty. It is so wonderful. Chopping up little bits of lemon balm leaves and throwing them into your salad. Oh my goodness, it's better than adding apple cider vinegar for that little bit of a zing to the taste of it. But the main thing that I want to tell you about Melissa is it cures. It kicks the absolute bejesus out of herpes.
Wow.
Be it herpes simplex 1, which are your simple cold sores, or genital herpes. It doesn't matter. Either one of them doesn't stand a chance when you start using Melissa.
Wow.
So it's effective as a tea, but it's also very, very effective as a poultice. For the cold sores, I recommend you just chew up a leaf and then just put it on the cold sore and hold it there for a little while and then let it drop off, and maybe an hour or so later do that again. For genital herpes, you're going to want to probably contain that leaf, crunch it up in a mortar pestle, wrap it up in something like cheesecloth or a really, really thin fabric, and apply the poultice right to the actual lesion. It's amazing what it does. And drinking the tea, many of my clients that have genital herpes find 2 days of 4 to 6 cups of lemon balm tea every day, and bam, their outbreak is done.
That's quick.
Yep, it's quick, and hey, it's really, really harmless. Now, lavender. This is another, oh gosh, where to start with lavender? Lavender is a universal healer. There are so many things that you can do with lavender. You can make a salve, you can make an oil, you can make a tincture, you can dry the blossoms and use that, you can dry the vegetation and use that. Lavender is a universal healer. It is absolutely guaranteed to help with almost anything you might be suffering from. One of the best topical herbs you can ever have, whether you make lavender water or a tincture or a salve or put it in your tub. It is so soothing to the skin. It is so nourishing. The name actually means to wash with.
Oh.
The area of the Roman houses that you washed in was the lavatory, where you washed. Lave, to wash. Lavender, the plant we wash with.
Yeah, I think we should have some more Roman baths. Those are pretty amazing baths.
Oh, yeah. I'd be all for Roman baths. You got it.
Yeah.
I want to spend a long time in the warm room, okay?
And by the way, the Chinese had them just the same as the big, huge tubs, right?
Yeah, whenever I hear all about primitive people, I kind of chuckle because I'm pretty sure their brains worked every bit as well as ours did. I've read things written, all the way back to the 6th century BC, and they weren't stupid.
No.
They had running water, they had heated water, they had, we've deluded ourselves into thinking that everybody up to the 20th century lived in dark candlelit caves. It just weren't so. They had a lot of luxuries, and I think some of their luxuries might have kicked ours all hollow.
Well, I think Roman baths were one of those. The whole thing about communal bathing and the social aspect of it, and taking the time to make it luxurious, all sounds good to me, right?
Absolutely, you got it. So a couple of medicinal medicinal volunteers that we've come across in your garden are the clover and the mullein.
Ah.
Now, both of them are very, very useful in teas. The red clover is very good for the digestion. Mullein is absolutely amazing for your respiratory system. It should be in almost any respiratory tea combination that you're making. Mullein can also be smoked. And I used to make a smoking mixture with mullein, lavender, a tiny little bit of cannabis, and kinnikinnick. And it was really, really good for people who were trying to kick the tobacco habit. It really helped in a lot of cases. Mullein expands lung tissue, so actually adding mullein to anything that you're inhaling is actually going to make it so that you get a much stronger benefit from that. Keep that in mind when you add it to cannabis, okay? Because yes, it expands all the areas of the lung. Breathing in steam from mullein is amazing. And one of the old remedies for a toothache was to tie or stitch mullein leaves together so that you made a cap that covered your side of your face that had the toothache on it. And then you soaked that in a vinegar water solution and lay down and put that on the side of your face that had the abscess tooth. And it would provide a lot of relief and would often cause the abscess to come to the surface and break. So mullein, very, very, very useful.
It's one of my favorite plants. I don't know why, but it is. I just love mullein.
You probably have deep memories of it.
Right.
And clover. Clover is really good for the digestive system, but clover is also a phenomenally helpful plant for skin salves. If you have eczema, if you have psoriatic patches on your body, if you get dry skin, if you get weepy, oozy skin, red clover salve is awesome. And about a decade ago, the Watkins Company stopped making its red clover salve with a petroleum salve base and started making it with an olive oil and beeswax base. So if you're looking for a really inexpensive red clover salve to experiment with, I can hardly recommend the Watkins brand. I don't recommend a lot of products, but I've used that one, and now that they're making it with, not making it with petroleum jelly, I'm copacetic with it, and it's a way to get yourself introduced to it. But yeah, infusing your clover into your oil is amazing. Now, we were talking earlier touched on the crossovers, and again, when you come into the Inner Garden Circle and you have the time to see all the videos and to reach out and contact me, we can really fine tune what your family needs, what your health needs are with the garden that you're going to grow. Okay, like it's really, really important that you have what you need on hand in your garden for your health. Now, we have a lot of really pretty flowers that have flown right under the radar and are in our gardens, even though they were initially grown for their medicinal use. Okay, and the first I want to talk about is feverfew. Lovely little dark green foliage and tiny little daisy-like flowers on the top. Oh gosh, it's a pretty, pretty, pretty plant. But it's called feverfew because it reduces fever. So making a tea or chewing a leaf is going to bring a fever down. And just like the catnip fever breaking thing, this can be really, really important for you to have. But the other thing that feverfew has been proven to be unbelievably effective with broke in the mid-90s, and it really did set the whole medical world on its ear. In a study out of England done over 12 years of data collection, the most effective treatment for migraine headaches was feverfew.
Oh.
And you didn't even have to make a tea, you just had to chew a leaf. As a matter of fact, chewing the leaf was the most effective way to use it. Making the tea came in second best. But think about that. It's all these years, it's over 100 years. It's only appeared in the flower section of the catalog. There's been no mention of its health-giving properties, not a word, not a syllable. You know, and yet it turns out that it absolutely crushes migraine headaches.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, wow. Another one that I want to talk about is hollyhock. And we talked about hollyhock a bit when we did our tea session for the Inner Garden Circle. But hollyhocks are a member of the malva family. They're a mallow, much like marshmallow, sweet mallow. But they just get really big and showy about it. But hollyhock, especially the blossom, is fabulous for the throat. If you're a singer, if you're somebody who needs to keep your voice in tune and mellow and clear and not cluttered up, gargling with hollyhock tea is a real good way to do it. Anytime you're making any kind of a compound for a sore throat or a scratchy throat, think hollyhock blossoms. Now, if you like red colored drinks, black hollyhock blossoms will turn your tea the most amazing red, every bit as colorful as a hibiscus blossom, really beautifies it up. I think it's one of the main reasons to grow black hollyhock, so you can have really kick-ass tea in the wintertime or in the summer when you're making those gorgeous sun teas. They look so good in the glass containers when they're made all red and pretty. Yeah, so those are now the greatest masquerader of all. It grew in my mom's garden. It grew in my grandma's garden. We called it purple coneflower. It was lovely. And then all of a sudden in the 80s, bam, the herb of the year, according to Organic Gardening and Natural Living and Rodale Press, was echinacea, aka purple coneflower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And again, you know, for years and years and years, it was grown strictly ornamentally. There was no mention in any of those catalogs that it had medicinal properties at all. And perhaps the greatest crossover of all, our good friend oregano. Here you thought it was the wonder spice that made everything on the planet taste like really good food. And you were right. It is that wonder spice. But Tyson, it's also the wonder herb. It actually, its names means joy of the mountain. And it was the herb that was given in almost every major illness that the entire Mediterranean community came up against. Oh. It was put into infused oils for the washing of bodies and for taking in smaller doses. They cooked it down and extracted the essential oil, and this was given in extreme cases. To this day, I know people whose answer to anything in the cold flu area at all is oregano oil. And I gotta say, it works for me. I keep oregano oil, and sometimes I drop a drop or two of it into the pot of stew because I don't have any fresh going. And a lot of times I put a drop of it in the very back of my throat because I've got a really bad cold coming on. Sometimes I put a drop of it in a cup of hot water to breathe really deep.
It's strong, though. It's strong.
Not just a culinary. It is a medicinal. And you know, over and over and over again, this is the case in the herb world. Very, very, very little that human beings chose to grow concentrate on was grown only for its ornamental. Very little of it. Daffodils.
Well, isn't that something? Not only are these things pretty, but they're very, very useful. They're gorgeous to look at. Some of them make wonderful teas and they heal us. I mean, learning about the flower and plant kingdom is just so multi-dimensional and multi-leveled. There's so much to learn, right? And thank you. This was such a wonderful show. So much great information that I never knew anything about. And here we are yet again at the top of the hour.
And yet again, we barely scratch this topic, but that's why we have the Inner Garden Circle, so that we can go into each and every one of these and so much more in total depth.
Yes. What's that? Yeah, well, we got Lois says a great episode. You too. Thank you so much for the information. Mojave, have a great evening. I think there's a link there somewhere to how to do there's a link there for the GoFundMe fund to help Mojave out, which is really important. That will go into the show notes.
I'm not seeing any of that in the chat. Okay.
So there you are. Great show. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you and learn so much, Sarah. When are you coming back to the garden? You'll have to come and have at least
tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Well, there you go. Go there. Well, there you are. Well, okay.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow and tomorrow.
Yeah, we just have not figured out whether early in the morning or in the cool of the evening.
Right. Well, you and Michael work that out. Well, goodbye, everybody. Thank you. We're back same time, same place. Every Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Come and join us for Garden Like a Grew Show. And if you haven't started your garden, what can I say? What can we say for those that haven't started your garden? Well, I'm sure you could grow something even now. Maybe a herb. What's that? Yeah, make friends with your local farmer. Find source out where there's good organic food in your area. It's important. Your livelihood.
Herbs. Plant herbs. Plant herbs. Plant herbs. Plant herbs.
Yes.
You can still start your perennials in pots and plant them out in the fall. Plant herbs.
Yeah, plant herbs. So there you are, folks. It's never too late to start learning how to garden like the Guru. So until next week, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Thank you.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.